the administration will propose adding $400 billion to the already $600 billion in debt that they've added in the past 6 months. You should not be happy with this. In the past 5 years, we've spent $1 trillion on the war in Iraq. In the past 10 weeks, the government, through a tricky piece of legislation in which the Congress gave away some of its own constitutional powers to the Secretary of the Treasury, the government has added $1 trillion to the debt of American taxpayers. It doesn't have that trillion. It either has to borrow it from foreign governments and pay it back at prevailing interest rates when the notes come due, or it has to raise taxes, which is unpalatable in hard economic times, or the Fed will simply print the money. Yes, you know that. The Federal Reserve is authorized under the law simply to print money. That, of course, results in reducing the value of the money that's already out there, and that's called inflation, and that will raise the prices of everything. None of this is a very good prospect, and all of it is caused because Republicans and Democrats have come together to interfere in the marketplace. They can no longer change. They can no more change the basic laws of economics than they can change the basic laws of physics. And the basic law is there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you bail out Bear Stearns today, you're going to have to pay that debt tomorrow. If you bail out Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae today, you're going to pay that debt tomorrow. If you establish a corporation owned by the federal government, and this is what Henry Paulson, the Treasury Secretary, has proposed, that will go around to the banks and pay them for their bad debt. So if they have loans where the borrower is not paying the money back in a timely manner, they will take that loan away from the bank. They will take the house, which was purchased by that loan, away from the homeowner. And then we, the American taxpayers, owe that debt and own that house. Where in the Constitution does the federal government have the authority to do that? And what makes them think that by postponing the day of reckoning, it's going to be any cheaper? It's going to be far more expensive. And what moral argument can be made for filling in the gaps in bad investments made by bankers? If a banker loans money to someone and that person can't pay it back, why should the taxpayers be bailing that bank out? That's called socialism. When you have some private gain, obviously the bank made some money when they gave the loan because there was interest initially paid on the loan and there are fees paid to the banks on account of the loan. But then it becomes socialism when the risk is shared by taxpayers. When you voted for your member of Congress, when you voted for your 2 United States senators, did you ever expect that in an 8-week period they would be adding $1 trillion in debt for you and your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren to pay back? It wasn't in the law. It's not in the Constitution. It certainly wasn't debated in the congressional elections of 2006. But these people want their jobs in Washington so badly that they will defy the laws of economics. There is no such thing as a free lunch. One must pay for everything one gets. They will defy those laws by postponing the day of reckoning until they are no longer in office. And that's basically what they're doing. They're disregarding the Constitution. They're writing new laws. They're appropriating property from private business. You know, we blasted Hugo Chavez, the president/dictator of Venezuela, for taking over Shell Oil, walking in, taking it over, paying pennies on the dollar to the shareholders. That's exactly what the federal government did. That's exactly what it did to AIG, the largest insurance company in the world, except AIG asked them to do it. It's exactly what it did to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, although Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac resisted it. If you own shares in those 2 large mortgage banks, you lost your shares. Your board of directors was kicked out. A new board of directors was imposed on you by the Secretary of the Treasury. That board of directors hired a new CEO, and they fixed his salary. And you lost your investment, and the taxpayers are bearing the burden. Boy, this would make Joe Stalin and the socialists of the last century very happy. Even though people take an oath when they enter the government to uphold the Constitution. And even though that Constitution mandates a basic free market, free enterprise system, they have taken over businesses and saddled you with debt. And these politicians seem to think that the federal treasury is not only a bottomless pit, but a public trough. And they think that any pig that wants to come by in the form of business people who have failed adequately to manage their businesses ought to be able to take food in the form of money out of that trough. And yesterday, this wasn't even on the front page, is what I'm going to tell you now. Yesterday, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, met with the chief executive officers of the big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Chrysler. And guess what they wanted? Just take a wild guess what they wanted. Cash. And take a wild guess what she offered them. $25 billion. Not in a loan, but in a giveaway. $25 billion. So add to the $1,100 billion, another $25 billion. That's the lack of respect that your government has for your tax dollars, that they would just give that money away. It is clear as day under the Constitution that the Congress is without the power to do this. It is also clear that people in the government who take an oath to uphold the Constitution simply don't do that. They spend their time trying to get around it rather than be bound by it.
Not just what's in the news, but what it all means to you. It's Brian and the Judge.